Hello and welcome back to Click Wars. Jamie, what's up, man? How's it going?
Hello, Sammy. We're here. We're doing the night shift. It's 9:20 p.m. It was well worth the night shift though. We spoke to Marco, and I've spoken with Marco a bit before. I've had consultations, and I always was super interested by his. Whereas I think most of us, we will hang out with each other. We're all content people, and we are good at looking at an individual page and going, that should do this. This should be here. The intro should be changed. You can evoke more emotion by doing XYZ instead for, affiliate psychology CRO. But we bandy together because that's what we know, but there's complete other worlds out there. And Marco comes from another world of data, but not on I think most people associate the sort of coding Python type with programmatic SEO and like scaling content from AI sort of stuff. Rather than using data on a page and site level to identify content to improve, to do audits on a sort of page level quality score type thing. And so he comes from that from a different perspective in like being able to, on an enterprise level, even if you've got 10,000 pages on your site, go and see where the bodies are buried in terms of like which clusters do I need to update? What are the functions from a business point of view beyond like, not just looking, okay, this has a bad bounce rate. Yeah, but it's an info article with a definition. It's not meant to be versus, clicking off a certain affiliate post may be the goal because it means that you're probably making more money if they're clicking on affiliate links. And so interrogating your site and looking for the data you want to find, but based on the business objectives, if you have, based on those business objectives. And so it was multi-level, multifaceted, very deep level stuff.
I loved it. The bit about content decaying was so interesting, and how he uses Google Search Console to identify the clusters which are underperforming and how he classifies that. There was some real good nuggets about zero clicks and the percentage ratios of sites with those, and things to watch out for sure. Certainly lots for me to take away as well and implement in my own content. So it's a big episode. So shall we get into it?
100%, man.
Let's go.
All right, welcome to this episode of Click Wars. We've got Marco on today. So just a brief backstory before we introduce him. I've previously spoken with Marco. I paid for some consulting for some stuff that I wanted to learn on a site that was hit. Marco was super useful and actionable in what we spoke about, and he also has a much deeper set of tools if you want, even if you've got a big site with a lot of pages on it that needs to be audited at scale. And we'll get to that, into the details in this podcast, of course. But just as a history, Marco has been super helpful and also a useful person to DM every now and then when we've got ideas and going back and forth and stuff like that. So give us a quick introduction, then we'll get into it. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Jamie and Sam. So essentially, hi, my name is Marco. I'm from Italy, but I live in Switzerland. I'm a freelance consultant as well as an in-house, I would say mostly a consultant. And I do SEO, mostly on the content side. So I'm not very well versed in technical SEO, which may sound strange, but I don't know very much actually. And backlinks, much less, because I usually delegate. So I'm mostly into content processes, and data. So everything to manage B2C content websites. B2B as well, but mostly B2C.
Nice. And so a lot of what you do is working with bigger sites with a large number of pages and stuff like that. But you recently told me that you got in and stepped into the niche site game for yourself. What's the difference been like from working on big sites with millions of pages to less pages?
Okay, so actually when I started SEO, it was back in December 2017 from a friend of mine in Italy. He had a publisher website, which then we converted into a niche website because doing news was not optimal, because I was like, why are you doing noise? It's not, just do evergreen content. So I already had some experience, but most of these websites I didn't own for myself. I was not the owner. So I got pissed off because you don't own it, so you can't control it actually. And I decided recently, 1 year ago, to launch my own niche website, which is doing quite well. Nice. Even though, the main difference with a big website is in processes, because usually big websites, most of them, I would say, are aged. The majority of them are aged. So if you started 10 years ago, I would say you're a privilege. It was much, much, much easier compared to starting it now. especially considering Google's recent behavior. And I would say the first difference is in indexing, of course. I tried a lot of tricks, even so it took quite some time, like some weeks, even with the more aggressive indexing methods. And I would say another big difference is I told in the processes, because I have one writer. I mean, we are very, very, very quick, but it's one writer and sometimes myself, another guy. In big websites, you can't have 3 people. Usually you have, 10, 20 people. If you're a big publisher, you have even larger teams. So mostly about processes and how they coordinate themselves. For example, the ratio between editors and writers, because someone at the end has to publish and check, proofread, if the article is correct. And I would say that maybe the part that is most similar would be research, because I treat research as the same. In my opinion, research is maybe similar across sizes, more or less, but execution, like editing, is different, as well as writing, because if you have 5 writers, it's very, very hard to manage them. So imagine having 20. So the main difference is about processes, not even the budget. Mostly, in my opinion, the processes themselves, how you coordinate. And of course, checking the data, because if you have a small website, I don't think you need to overthink it. First, you validate the idea, you see if it works. Then, if you get traction, you can say, okay, maybe we can do something else. But I don't want to overthink it, because I saw some people that just publish, it works, and then they continue. Other people, they overthink it too much. Maybe Google doesn't like your domain because I don't know why, because they don't, and you are finished.
Yeah. So how many pages have you got on the site now?
It's only articles, around 300, but
Okay.
they are all listicles. We're moving fast with one person because it's always listicles. It's not a niche with an high RPM, because it's inside entertainment, and the RPMs are not remotely comparable to travel, finance, and friends. But it's good because I want to do affiliate later, like with Lasso. Why not? I want to try
quick plug.
the product placement. Yeah, I want to start with affiliate because there are some high-ticket products. It's a very, how can I say? It's not that anyone can talk about this niche, but quality content about this niche is very, very rare on Google. The niche per se is not difficult, but covering it in detail is difficult. I would say in a niche like travel, maybe travel is similar because anyone can talk about travel, but how many good websites about travel can you recall? Good. Not many.
No.
It's similar. Finance, I would say that finance is the opposite, because finance for me, everything is hard. Even the easiest topic for me is hard to understand.
There you go,
Yep.
Sammy.
Yeah, I can feel you there, mate. I feel you there.
Yeah.
Nice. So when it comes to designing content, like I think that you're most well known for being the data-centric SEO. But when you come to do individual pages, page level is different to site level.
Yeah.
How do you hone what you do and your skills, all obviously on a site level, but how do you focus and look for wins for optimizing content on a page-by-page basis for perhaps a site like yours where there's fewer pages than 10 million, where you'd want to go page by page on?
Okay, so usually my approach is very traditional and boring, because I tried a lot of stuff. I've read a lot of patents, like a lot of them, and I think that many people lose themselves in the execution. Example, to answer your question, entities, okay? I know because I've studied this stuff at college. I know it works like that. It makes sense for Google in terms of money to use that approach. Okay, it's fine. But in SEO terms, or if you're a content manager, how would you integrate some of this knowledge into on-page SEO? It's not easy. You can say, okay, use Surfer SEO. But at the end of the day, when you use Surfer SEO, isn't it the same of keyword stuffing? What's the difference? I just changed the name to entity. If you think about that, my processes are very traditional. The only thing that is different, where I care the most, the only difference is one. The introduction is the most important part, as you say in your Spear framework and the new one, because I was reading it. But for another reason, Of course, because of the users, I agree, because they have to stick with your page, but for another reason, because machines, Google, put more emphasis on the introductory, the title and the introduction. So the part where I spend the most time is the introduction, not in affiliate, I mean for every website, even if you talk about, I don't know, cargos, the same, because it's where Google can understand better your context. So I try to put the main keyword or the main concepts as subjects. For example, if you have an article about the best romance movies, I would start the articles with romance movies are whatever, and then switch it up to make it more natural. But the first would be romance movies. This is the only thing I do. The rest is quite similar. So I have briefs, SOPs, where the processes are more or less the same. For example, which sources to include, the structure, what you have to mention. And the syntax rules are the usual you should follow in copywriting and content marketing. So prefer active sentences, avoid whistle words, adverbs, maybe not too many times because it may feel too unnatural, but more or less, I don't do anything special. The only special thing I do in terms of content for the page is that I keep a small database in Airtable. I guess you know it.
Yeah, you put me onto Airtable. I've used it since.
You're right. Because a lot of people use Google Sheets, but just use the free version of Airtable. It's better, the same thing, but better. And I keep comments for every article, plus the cluster they belong to. So if I have any problem, I can just label them. But the only optimization I do is writing for every page for these small websites a comment. For example, check every 6 months, or recall to add this detail, check this competitor. And then I filter by comment. This is what I usually do, because I tried more complex stuff, but then the writers or the editors don't understand it. So I was like, no, okay, let's keep it simple.
Nice. I have. Oh, go on, Sammy.
I was just going to say, so you're using this as your main tool to know when to update and what to update. Is that right?
No. When to update and what to update, I usually pick Search Console data and do something that I can tell you now or later, as you prefer.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay, so depending on the website, I told you, if it is small, I don't use data much because the focus should be on efficiency, execution, publishing content, and keeping your rankings. For big websites that have already traffic, I usually check decay. So content decay, as you know, it's when you lose essentially traffic over time. Even for no particular reason, you just lose it because that's how it works. So I've made a script with a friend of mine who's a data scientist. It's a very simple script, actually, very, very simple. The idea is that we pick all the pages on a website, okay, and we assign a score to each page. This score can go from minus infinite to plus infinite. For example, if you have a value of minus 5,000, it means massive decay. So you've probably been losing a lot of traffic. If you go, I don't know, to plus 5,000, it's massive content growth. That's what I usually do. I do analysis with Search Console data, sometimes analytics but for niche websites, people can hate me, but I would say Search Console is the number one tool. And then maybe analytics. I check what's going on in terms of this score, as well as grouping data into groups. For example, if you have a lot of pages, it's impossible to optimize each of them, right? It's impossible. So what you do instead, you try to group them, you label them into clusters to give common actions. For example, you can say all the pages that have these clicks and these impressions should be followed by these actions. And these actions are add internal links, update introduction, do this. So I mainly go divide et impera. I divide them in groups, and then I give orders to each group to see what we can update on those, okay?
Right.
Because, for example, if you have an article that is performing very well, let's say, I don't know, best fridges, it's super competitive in affiliate, and everyone knows, even if you've ever never done it, that you probably have to update or keep an eye on that article every month, at least. Every month, at least. So these articles will go into a different group with a different priority and different needs. But those articles, for example, seasonal articles, what to do, I don't know, at Christmas Eve in London. Do you need to update it in March? No. So it will fit into another group. You see the pattern? You just split these articles based on criteria, and you say, okay, forever these articles, you have to do these actions by this priority.
So just to kind of put that into context in a way that I understand it. Let's use finance, because I'll make it clear here. If, for example, a high interest savings account, interest rates are changing all of the time. So on that page, you're required to check it sometimes even every week, sometimes once a month, right? So that goes into one type of group. Then you've got informational content that's supportive of that might change with it. So you're grouping that together essentially into one thing. And then everything else gets into different groups, different clusters. And sometimes it's weighted by the actual Search Console data and performance of that group.
Correct. That's exactly the gist.
Got it.
Yeah. Sometimes, of course, for example, when you measure content decay, the biggest problem I see, it's everywhere in SEO. It's everywhere. It's not niche. It's everywhere in every branch of SEO. Is that people do this error. For example, let's say you have an article, okay? And in January, you got 500 clicks. And they tell you, in December of the same year, you got 5,000 clicks, okay? And I ask you, is this decay or growth? What would you say? You only have these two pieces of information.
Well, you don't have the full picture because there could be enormous growth and some decay.
Correct.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Both.
Okay, but the majority of WordPress plugins and tools do this reasoning. They pick two time frames and say, okay, in December you got X, in January you got minus. Okay, this is growth. But what if I told you that from February to November you had 20K? This is decay, no? The majority of 10 months against 2 months is the majority. So this is why I use this decay. Decay, essentially, the formula we've used is very simple. It's do you recall from school the straight line? No? What's a straight line? You have the slope. You have this. Okay, you have this value called slope, which can be positive or negative. No? Positive growth, negative decay. If it is near zero, probably it's either seasonal or stagnation, which you ignore. You don't care. So you only look for those values that are super low. That's it. This is the decay. There are other methods, but this is one of the most reliable, I would say, and quick.
Wow, that's so interesting.
Just to go back one moment before, because you mentioned how things like Surfer will show you entities, but there could be keyword stuffing. And so something that I first read from Tony Hill when he talks about not just entities themselves, but the entity salience within there, and making sure that the main bits of the sentence you're trying to promote semantically are being seen as the object of the sentence and the most important parts of the sentence. And that sort of Surfer might be like a level 1, and then salience might be a level 2 in there. If you are thinking about like, and anyone can run it through the NLP API who's listening to check that, it's not like technical. But you mentioned thinking about entities there. Does the salience form any part of your content strategy as well, or are you comfortable without that?
Yes. So essentially, I mean, the thing with entities is that the NLP API is very, very incomplete because it gets so many entities wrong, especially if you work in fiction. I don't know, if you talk about movies or this stuff or other niches books, it gets all the entities wrong. Even with Pokemon. If you try with Pokemon, it gets them wrong. I'm not joking. It gets them wrong, which is very hard. So I use instead the text Razor, which is another API that in my opinion, it's more accurate because you pay for it. I don't recall if it's more expensive, but it's very, very good. And essentially salience, as you probably know, it's a measure of the relevance of the entity your text. It means what is the most important entity in this sentence, no? It's like the order of importance. So at the beginning, I told you that I put the main concept at the beginning of the sentence. This was a low-key way of saying salience, actually. But I didn't want to say salience, but yeah.
Right, but that is part of your express like instructions to writers to focus on.
Yes, but it's instruction to writers. I'm not overthinking it anymore because I tried it in the past, but clients don't understand it. It's hard to integrate everything, But if you have a big project or you want to do intelligence, I used to scrape travel websites and to get the entities from all of them for Asia, Africa, whatever, to see the entities and this stuff. But again, it's not something I would recommend unless you have a big budget and a clear plan to do it so methodically.
Right. And so just repeat, what's the instruction you have for the writer that everyone else can then use?
Yes. So I just tell the writer that the main keyword or the main concept should be used as the subject of the first or the very few first sentences. And when you talk about these concepts, they should be in active voice. For example, I told you before, instead of saying, this article is about the best movies, which is also bad to hear in English, you can say, a lot of people look for the best movies. Again, it's not the subject, but still is in a central position. Or you can just say, the best selection of movies is a challenge of the movie sector, something like that, where there is a more central position compared to having it nested down or deep down, where it loses sense. Because I've been reading some introductions, and I wasn't understanding the subject of the article. Because sometimes they just bold it and it's in the middle. But, it should be, in my opinion, it should be more straightforward.
Straight away. So Corey goes into this quite a bit on some recent podcasts. I don't know if you've seen it, but he goes much deeper into the page level. You've mentioned about intro here. So do you then follow this for the following H2s and H3s and the corresponding text that goes throughout the entire article?
Yes. I try to tell the writers to follow this structure, but with one exception. One exception. Important. I don't want them to write like full SEOs. I tell them, consider it as content marketing. So, for example, if you have an article about, again, the best movies, don't just write, don't always start with the main entity as the subject, because it's annoying to read it, no? It's very annoying I would feel sick. This is not English. So I tell them, try to twist things a little bit, because at the end, for ranking, even for a lot of these keywords, come on, you need links or you need other factors as well. I don't think that following the same rules every time will give you that boost. But if you are current, most times, if you are consistent 80%, 70% of the times, it's fine. Just have a good structure. But I am against rigid structures because I treat it more as content in general, not only SEO. And I think the user should be happy to comment and tell you, wow, this article is amazing. Because I prefer to have people that convert rather than ranking and not converting. This is what I mean.
There's a balance, isn't there? Like you always find when you're forcing it and in your head, you're like, I'm doing an SEO thing here, but it's really shit for the user. So you've got to be careful. And often I just pull it out and the article ranks fine anyway, because I've done the hard work in the opening sections and in the right headings, etc.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the same, because at the end, it's not like you have one ranking factor. I mean, you have a lot of them. So even if you try to forecast them, you can't, because it's unpredictable. You can try to swindle it according to your experience, your opinions, and what you are testing, but it's still unpredictable, like Google updates. How do you predict them?
Yeah, man. You're so right. That's really interesting, though. So your main focus really for people to take away from this is get it out in the intro and get it strong and get it going.
Yeah, the structure, the taxonomy structure is the most important thing of every article. But the main point is that I tried, for example, tools like Surfer SEO many times. And honestly, I have problems to teach people to use them because, especially with VAs, they always stuff. They always stuff terms, even though Surfer doesn't tell them to, because the tool per se is useful. I created a clone. I mean, it's easy to create a clone. I mean, I did with some friends. We cloned a lot of tools. It's normal. But the idea is that your writers and editors should know how to use them. This is the point, because Surfer per se is a very useful tool if you have the right team of people writing. So if they don't stuff anything, then understand that, there is a balance.
For the helpful content algorithm, and I don't mean for this one particularly, though. I mean, I don't know when everyone's listening to this, but we're about 3-4 days in, and it's a bloodbath for most people out there right now. But generally, your focus a lot of the time is around finding stale content, decay. We'll go through some more bits in a section where you say you identified decaying clicks, and then use things like unique query counts and stuff. We can get to that. But for the moment, a lot of people are sort of dumbfounded and confused as to what helpful content means, how you can use data to measure it, and where you can prioritize looking for how you can recover these in the most effective way. Based on what you've seen on a big, like, macro level with data and how you've gone to recover sites and prioritize what to do to recover them, what would you advise people who have been hit by a helpful content update to go and do?
I would say a thing that many won't like, but I will say it anyway. The first thing is having the resources. No, I'm not joking. Sometimes I see websites that are very good, affiliate websites, and they tell them, okay, you have these articles to update. It's clear that your competitors are better. Here's the evidence. And they tell me, we don't have the stuff. Okay. In my opinion, the biggest problem is not finding what to update. You just check what's dropped. The thing is having the stuff and the resources, because many just that's why I don't like content velocity, because many people publish and forget to protect the castle, to protect their rankings, because then they don't have stuff. Maybe they don't have enough writers, editors to update the content, and they are stuck. So this is the first thing. The other things I noticed is that ET, in my experience, is mostly for specific websites, because on some websites you can be anonymous and still go and discover. My niche website, I don't have my identity because I don't want to be associated with that niche because there is too much flame. But it still goes on discover by eating publishing. I don't do anything. So I don't think that it is for every niche, but in finance, healthcare, not it as we mean it, because technically it is not a ranking factor, but let's say a series of elements that combine together affect your visibility exist, and those are stronger in finance, healthcare, and some specific niches. That's true. And I would just recommend people to have pages, like no affiliate disclosure, of course you need, but other pages like your editorial policies that take 2 minutes to write. For one reason, in my opinion, the best way to keep your website for the helpful content update is to fake yourself as Raptive or Mediavine and say, would I refuse this website? Like, play devil's advocate and be the absolute worst at evaluating your website, poking holes. And it's mostly about the branding, design, identity, like your value proposition. You don't have to pay a designer. Even a simple logo or something unique, like a gradient, can make it visible or something like that. Many websites I have seen, especially affiliate, can I say that? They were following the income school model, which I think is utter trash.
I agree. I think it's the worst course out right now. Yeah. To everyone else who agrees with me secretly is trash.
No, but the new one, not the old one, the new one, because before it was very good. But
no, so okay, let me clarify. When the original other person was there, it was good.
Yeah, I agree.
When Jim was there.
Yeah, now it's. I saw a lot of websites built with that model, and it's stock WordPress, and many of those websites were hit. And most of them were affiliates. I've seen a lot of them, same model. So I would say that Google, of course, they also check the quality of your content. But technically speaking, if you keep your website like that, it's also likely that your quality is low. I think that many people confuse the two things. Because if you own a website and you care about it, and you keep that design, which is not, it's super stock WordPress, probably your quality and your content will also probably reflect that behavior. So the two things aren't necessarily related, but they often are. And that's why I think that many people focus on author bios and this stuff, but it's not like you fix them and you rank back. It's mostly about a set of stuff like the design, the branding, which pages you have, because of course they check if you have terms and conditions and these pages. It doesn't take much for Google to do that. It's not complex. And it's something that doesn't even take much effort. It's very easy. So this is what I would fix.
During Search Birmingham Charles Float's event, I was at the affiliate mastermind, and James Dooley, who was running the group, mentioned that one of the things that they do, and they, it might not directly be shown to have an effect, but there are things that like you have to have if you do 50 million in turnover a year, which is a modern slavery statement, and no one has.
I know. In the UK, it's mandatory. I know.
Yeah, and so it's at a certain level you have to have one. But he was saying there's little things, and there's other pages like that as well that you at certain levels of success you have to have. And what they'll do on their smaller sites is they'll add those because only big sites have them. So they're the only site in their niche with what a big publicly traded company would have. And you can't prove it makes a difference, but it doesn't take long to make. And rather than being associated with a beginner site like a stock WordPress site, like you mentioned, you're associating yourself with 50 billion turnover companies by having that statement. So it's interesting.
100%, man.
I think that many people, I think, overestimate Google. I'm not a big fan personally. I like them. Okay. They are based in my city. They have the biggest headquarters in Europe, so it's good for the city, it's good for the country, whatever. But in terms of the search team, I'm not a super big fan. Due to publishers, owners, what they do in terms of with our content is true, because if I do the same, it's a problem. If they do it, okay, it's fine. But the thing is that many people overestimate, in my opinion, the capability of Google for some things, because really, I know people that have websites, like bloggers, travel bloggers, that don't know much about SEO, but still ace it. I'm not advocating don't learn SEO. I'm just saying that if you know that much SEO and you have solid processes, your content is actually good and original. In some niches, not in all, in gambling, I wouldn't say so, but in travel and in some niches, this can be a formula for success. Of course, if you are bigger, you need more advanced systems. You can't just rely on good content. Good content is not, you don't rank with good content in some niches. You need links, you need other factors. But in some niches, like in niche websites, if you pick carefully your niche, yes, you need good content at first.
Yeah. Going back to, I guess, the helpful content parts wherein you've mentioned in, I think it was your content audit episode of, and everyone should sign up for this, the newsletter that Marco runs, where he talks about SEO statistics. You mentioned that there are site level metrics at the end of an audit where you can talk about the percentage of pages getting 0 clicks, the percentage of pages without internal links, other metrics like that. Do you think these are components of the helpful content algorithm or not? Or how would, if you were looking to optimize for that, what would you look for as a red or a green flag around that?
Okay, so for those metrics, I would say they are more useful for the owners, to give them an overview, or for the executives, if there are. The only metric that I think can be, I'm not saying it is the percentage of your pages. I'm still convinced, I'm purely convinced that Google actually knows which of your pages won't rank and they negatively affect your website. I still believe this, not because of the Yandex leak or whatever, but simply because if I were Google, if I were to think as an engineer, probably, I would try to score quality in some way. Now, how would you score quality? There are several ways. You can use engagement metrics, not from Google Analytics. Engagement metrics from bots or other scenarios. This is what I mean. Let's forget about analytics. I'm saying probably they have some engagement metrics to measure it. For example, if you have an article which is about, action figures, okay, affiliate, probably you want people to read it and click on something, But if you're looking, when was the United Kingdom created? You don't want to stay on the page. You probably want to click and then exit or just look at the snippet, okay?
Yeah.
So this is one of the things I look. If you have a website with a lot of evergreen content, okay, and I noticed that your evergreen content, the introduction is super long, like 10 lines. The structure is bad. People will bounce. And you don't even need to look at the bounce rate. I mean, of course you can. You can also look at the exit rate, do something more accurate. But you notice if your content is not sticky enough, you notice this is one of the red flags I see, but I don't use the average bounce rate. It doesn't mean anything, because the average bounce rate of a website doesn't tell you anything. If I tell you, okay, it's 70%, doesn't mean anything. You know, it doesn't measure anything at the end. It's not like the total of clicks, which is an addition. You are summing, no? The bounce rate in that case doesn't mean anything. The bounce rate for a page is different, or the exit time. Whatever, exit rate, I don't recall the new name, whatever. It's more informative, okay? If you understand how it's scored. And you can tell, okay, maybe the website has problem. For site-wide metrics, not for Google, for me, what I usually look, I told you, is the percentage of zero-clicks pages to say, okay, in terms of organic, these pages do that. And if I split them in group, I can tell, for example, 20% of the pages have a weak performance. Weak means below this number of clicks and impressions, and so on. But for Google, I told you, I don't really overthink it, because I don't want to put my bias, my assumptions into what Google does. So I just stick with this simple approach. I see what's not getting traffic, and then I actually check the website. And with common sense business logic, I see if the website is bad. Because let's be honest, with content websites, there isn't much to understand. If an article is bad, and your experience, you don't need any data. You just open it and you say, this article, the structure smells bad, I can tell you. If you have an article, an affiliate website, and you are not using tables or bullet list, is that even an affiliate website? No. So I mean, you can do it on scale. You can use Screaming Frog, check for specific elements on a page. But at the end of the day, I usually check, I told you, the percentage of zero-clicks pages, what's happening on an organic level. Then I also check other channels, like email marketing or whatever, because some pages are not required to get organic clicks. They shouldn't. Maybe they are for email, they are for social, and it's completely fine.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to ask you, like, do you discount the about, the terms of use, all of those types of pages from that overall percentage? And then my second question is, like, what is a bad percentage for an overall website? Let's say it's got 500 articles on it. Like, what are you looking for?
So for the first question, usually when you use Search Console, by default it's all organic. So this problem is not a problem. I also check analytics, because I told you many content websites are living with email marketing. So you have to consider what's happening on the email marketing level, social media. So before deleting content, you also check other channels. You don't base your decision on Search Console. For the second one, wait, I forgot. The percentage, yeah. Okay. So for the percentage, well, I can tell you, in my opinion, acceptable. Okay, fair enough percentage would be 30 to 40. I've audited a lot of websites that were on sale, niche websites from, like, I don't know, 70, and per flippers level, like 70K to 1.2 or 2 million. I've audited them for a buyer. And I can tell you that many of these websites, especially below 100K, for not monthly, total evaluation and sales value, at 70% or even 60%, not from per flippers, also from other providers. I'm just stating. Some of them add from 50 to 70% of zero-clicks pages. And I don't know why. They were on sales. I don't even recall where. But it's normal, because a lot of people, as you know, Mediavine and RapType don't accept you if you have too much traffic from a few pages. But a few pages doesn't mean, actually a few pages. There are some websites with 500 articles, as you said, and maybe 50 articles are giving them the bulk of the traffic. And maybe they get accepted in Mediavine or whatever. And it happens. It can happen. It happened. Why not? And I wouldn't recommend buying these websites, because in my opinion, the percentage of zero clicks should be around 30 to 40. Because usually some of them are to be deleted, so it's not a problem. But some of them, it's a little bit of a problem, because if you have a website, okay, I was auditing a website. This website had 5,000 or more pages. Wow. I can tell you, it's not much. wait. This website was doing 40K per month back then in May or April, I don't recall. So the total sales value was 1.2 million. So times 30. Okay. And it was a strange website, a niche I didn't expect, because that's what you usually call a poor niche. You would say this niche is poor. No, it's not. It's a stupid niche. I won't tell it, but it's very, very stupid. And that website had a good percentage, like 30, 40%. But the main hitters, the articles getting a lot of traffic were massive, super massive. A lot of people, when they buy domains, they don't look at this stuff. They don't ask for Search Console. And if you ask, many of them give you, because I managed to get it many times. So they give you. And they don't check this stuff, which is important in my opinion. Because if I have to buy a domain, for example, and I say, okay, this website is ranking fine, it's good. Then I come and I tell you, Jamie, this website has 50% of the traffic that is void. 50% of the website is giving you 0. Would you still buy it or not?
It depends if you're about to tell me that the normal is about 50% or if the normal is much less.
No, but let's say it's 1,000 pages. So 500 pages are 0. The other 500 are from 1 to high.
Yeah, you'd prefer the best possible distribution so that you're a lot of risk from, I mean, or at least not like 2, 3, 4, 5 pages getting a big percent. I guess it matters less. It may matter from a helpful content perspective in the algo, but from a money like risk diversification, I'm less bothered about a lot having 0 versus a few having lows. But yeah, I get what you mean.
No. This is an intelligent comment, because of course you also have to check the distribution. Because if you have a lot of articles getting 1 click, what's the difference then?
Yeah.
But the idea is the same. A lot of websites that are on sale are good because there are a few hitters. A few doesn't mean 3 articles. It can also be 50 or 100. But what if you have 8,000 articles? This is the issue. A lot of websites I've audited get hit because they go overboard. They lack in content updating and processes. And they only think about moving forward, which is great. You still make money. You can still flip the website. But if you want something more durable, I think you have to think about prevention, which is what I usually do. So thinking about the future, if you publish an article, how frequently, how often should you update that article to be safe? It's like paying for insurance. No? You have insurance in everything. Why not with websites at the end? It's the same concept. It's not guaranteed, but I can tell you, okay, not even insurance. Who tells you that a tree is going to eat your car? The same easy with a website. Who tells you that you're going to eat by the Google update? What's the difference? But you can prevent it. You can take some measures to reduce the risk. No? You can prevent it. You can say, okay, let's update these articles every 3 months. Every 6 months, let's see which pages are not performing, and let's consider their future, because this is the main point I want to cover. What I do, analytics, is not about coding. This is a thing I hate. It's not about coding analytics for or tag manager. It's a school, we can say, of decision making. It's how to use data to your advantage. It's not doing scripting. For example, programmatic SEO is totally different, because programmatic SEO is essentially scripting and having a programmatic approach, as the name implies. In this case, it can also be more abstract, more focused on decision making and this stuff. Data play a key role, but you don't need to code in every single scenario or to deploy complex solutions. So I told you, if you have a website, what I usually do is to see and define how frequently I should update some content, and if I can afford to update it. I know this sounds like a joke, but I told you, many people have big websites. They complain, I was penalized. Okay, you have to do this stuff on this content. I don't have the resources. Okay, why did you write 1,000 articles in 15 years then? And you don't even have the stuff. No? Because they didn't check in 15 years or in 10 years to do spring cleaning. And now recently Google, in the last 2 years, has become more active. And now they realize that maybe it would have been a great idea to be more focused on the processes rather than publishing.
I've got a theory, and I'm interested in your thoughts on the theory, and it's which way you think it lies in the algorithm for helpful content. So, like in some ways, I've explained it to people on my teams in like a easy to understand bit, and like we want to reduce the amount of red flags we have and turn them into green flags. As in, the method was go after what we think the worst content was and improve it that wasn't deleted already, to then minimize the number of red flags, clean up the index. The fewer the red flags, in theory, the higher the ratio of green flags to red flags. However, I'm not sure how reliable that is. And my other thought is that, is it actually just a page level quality score that's pretty exponential, in that like a good article could be like a score of 50,000 and a bad one score of 50, and the average 100 needs to be good enough, and therefore you only need to make 20 articles fantastic to recover from maybe 500 bad ones. With whatever that is, or whether they measure anything like information gain or whatever. But I don't know whether it would be, is it as reductive as green flags and red flags and ratios, or do they want to reward fantastic things so much by applying like a huge weighting that can bring your whole site up by having a few fantastic posts?
Well, I believe, not because Google said that recently, for recall, I believe in a site-wide level. Of course, I mean, Google, even you can actually evaluate a domain. If you give me a domain, you can evaluate it. You can create a knowledge graph or a graph, as you probably know, like the one you have is Screaming Frog, to give you an idea, where you can connect the web pages, you can extract metadata, you can do a lot of stuff. So Google can evaluate the topics of your website. And for the quality, they probably look at your templates, some engagement metrics, not from Google Analytics again. And as you said, I also think they look at a ratio or something, good, bad. I'm convinced they do something like that. But for one simple reason, because they have to quantify, they have to put it into code in some way. So I think they have to consider something like that. But I also think, because it's how machine learning works, that classifiers, any algorithm, can't be 100% accuracy. They can't have 100% accuracy. So even so, there will always be website sit. The problem is 10% of Google is a big number, very big number. So what can happen is that you get it, you say a lot of websites got it, but how many out of the total? This is my point. If you have an algorithm with an accuracy of 90%, is super high, super high for many tasks. It depends on the task. It's not that simple. You have different metrics. For example, would you prefer to have a website flagged as a false positive or a false negative? What is the worst case? And they have different, in machine learning, they have different metrics for this case, okay? So maybe they optimize for one metric instead of the other, etc. The point is, if Google is, hypothesis, 91% accurate, okay? 9% of the websites get mislabeled. For Google and for the user, is that a problem? It's still a big number of the web. But maybe for Google it's a success, because they tell you, okay, but 91% is correct. And they are right. But 9%, if you count the number out of billion or trillion, whatever, it's a huge number. This is what I mean.
Yeah.
It's a huge number.
Yeah. And so I was so when we recovered the site until a few days ago when the helpful content update hit, and now who knows, but we did that by focusing on deleting the worst bits that weren't part of the main topical map and improving the ones that had potential or were key bits, the key definitions and stuff that would be bad to delete. But I had a consultation with Dr. Marie Haynes, and she mentioned that, yeah, that's fine to do, but also there's a weighting that could be applied to your best posts that means that having those improved could be the way to go. And so I was going back and forth. Do we improve the worst posts to try and bring the best ones up? Or do we actually forego those and improve the best ones because they are like exponentially more important in how they are weighted in Google's minds?
I mean, I agree with this. The issue is that if you're not an SEO, if you own a website, but even if you're an SEO, there is no really way of knowing unless you test on a lot of websites and you are sure about what. So my main approach in this case is to get the process right. I can't stress this enough, because I told you, you want to prevent damage. You want to think, if I get hit tomorrow, what can I do in advance, today, now? So in this case, it's true. You can update your top performance or maybe the mid performers, and Google may reward you. But as one guy, this guy is also English, in my opinion, one of the best SEOs in the world in general. It's called Daniel Foley Carter, LinkedIn. He only writes on LinkedIn. He said that for some SERPs, and I agree with him, for some queries, it's impossible to rank before a certain time. So let's formalize it. The theory, the hypothesis is that for some queries or for some things to happen, there is an imaginary timer. I think this theory is true because even if Google doesn't do that, even if Google doesn't have this in the code, okay, it's what happens because some stuff requires time. And also with the updates, I've seen websites completely destroyed by one update, recovering the next updates. And you can tell me it's random or by chance. It's not by chance. It's heavily implied that maybe sometimes Google told that. I'm pretty sure it happened as well. They go back, they probably flag some websites. Maybe they check them later to see if something changed. And some of them, they may recover because I've seen this behavior. And if you recall, I don't recall in May or whatever, you had this problem with one of your websites, Jamie.
Yeah.
And you didn't do much. It's not like you destroyed the website, it recovered. You just modified some things, but it's not extensive changes, right?
Yeah, we deleted 10% of the posts and then improved the worst ones. But now we're just trying to do the best ones because since then the best ones become stale, and then that obviously hits revenue because they're the big affiliate ones, and then products go out of stock and stuff. But with this helpful content update, we might have been hit back down again. It's difficult to know.
That's the problem with SEO. I mean, in my opinion, finance or fields like that are much more mature. Because if you study finance, apart that you studied in college, it's much more serious, no? There is something more schematic. In SEO, it's very hard because you just need one update to change the game. And maybe you're unlucky because maybe you are one of those websites that get hit and it happens. And I wouldn't say that is the same in finance because black swans are rare. They are not like Google updates. Now you know that every 4 months you have an update. I would say that Google is much harder to manage, and that's why I'm not a big fan of prediction. Probably you've heard of it, forecasting. I mean, forecasting in SEO is useful if you are in B2B, like in super stale markets. But if you're in affiliate, what are you trying to predict? You just need one update, and it's all gone into ashes. So I'm more a fan of descriptive. So descriptive means describing what happens in the past. For example, what I said before is descriptive because you are not predicting anything. I'm just telling you, look, Jamie, look, Sam, these pages are performing bad. That's it. It's already happening. It's already happened. Now you have to act. Prediction is when, of course, you try to estimate what could be the potential traffic or which pages show some signs of decay. But again, it's not that easy in SEO. So it's not something I advocate because it can be very, very wrong with affiliate and some niches.
So just to kind of break this down for the beginner that might be listening to this, because they're listening to this, perhaps they're in their first year and they're just like in pure blinkers on mode. I need content, I need traffic, and like they're going for it. Do you feel like they should bed this process in within year one, or is this something like year 2, year 3, or like how are you looking at this? Like I know your other metrics and Decaying makes a sense, but for someone who's just like a lot of these sites, like they haven't aged yet, they haven't even got the opportunity to rank yet. Like, so what do you do in this case?
As I told you, for new websites, in my opinion, the important thing are the following: having a spreadsheet, I recommend Airtable, where you just write URL, title, target keywords, and the cluster. Important, the cluster they belong to. If you have multiple authors, also them. You have this internal database, nice database, your homework, where you put all of your stuff, which will be useful later. As you publish articles, even if you don't know anything, even if you've just started, you write a small column, a nice column, where you say, okay, let's check these in 4 months. Something like this, simple, is perfect to start.
Right.
Because once you get bigger, let's say year 5, you will go back and say, fuck, we have the column with the clusters. Now we can go to Search Console, join the data, and they can tell you which cluster is doing better. Because you label it yourself from the start. And it's free. It's not something you have to pay for. You do it for free. You write an article about best things to do in Mykonos. You have one column, and you write, okay, cluster, Greece, cluster, summer, whatever. So when you have to analyze Search Console, you just join the table, you do a pivot table, whatever, and you can tell, okay, the Greece cluster is good. Perfect, let's invest more. Why is the Turkey cluster performing worse? Let's see. Even something simple like this is good because you're building awareness to updating your content. And I told you, having solid processes also mean that you have a Google Docs or something simple where you write the steps for your writers' editors, and then you find the bottlenecks. For example, one of the problems I have is publishing, because I have to proofread some stuff. And you can say, okay, proofreading is my bottleneck. How can we speed it up? Is there something we can do to reduce the time to publish so we can publish more and reduce the risk of publishing bullshit? Is there some way? We are not even using math or data. This is something more about, business. Now, business logic, we can say. And I think this is what many should do. Keep it simple, but always think about the worst. But if you use this approach from the start, you are much, much more aware and informed, and you have you have surprise, but you don't have many surprises compared to other people that just publish, and then they're like, why is this cluster not performing well?
Yeah.
Or because you should label your data.
It's like one of those things, man. Like, when you first start writing as well for a new site, like in a new niche, those first articles are going to be shit anyway. So you're going to need to update them.
Yeah.
Like, so if you just get into that rhythm early and just constantly improve your content rather than thinking about new publishing articles as a number, think about this as like how do I make what I've got better as well at the same time as trying to publish new stuff, then you're going to put yourself in a much better position long term.
Yeah, I agree. Also because for internal links, you have to do it anyway. I tried some plugins, like Link Whisper is good, but the same warning that Surfer had. You need to train your writers to use the tool properly, because once I told one guy, don't use Link Whisper because you are not trained, you don't know how to use it. And there were articles linking to random articles.
Yeah.
Like you talk about a fridge and you link to a page about, ovens. But it's not the fault of the tool. It's because they didn't set it up correctly in terms of anchor text and criteria. So everything should be set up correctly. And even my WordPress stack is stupid. I copied it from Alex. Alex Niche Sites on Twitter. Yeah. One of my best Twitter friends.
I met him in York when he came for Affiliate Gathering. He's a lovely guy, really nice guy.
He's a lovely guy.
Yeah, one of my favorite people. And he just told me, man, use Generate Press, the paid version. How is it called? WPX, the hosting, and that's it. That's my stack. And some plugins, the usual plugins you use. That's it.
Nice. So I won't keep you too long. I've got so many questions. We'll have to get you back for another one because there's a few others that I really wanted to go through. It's been really, really good to talk.
Yeah,
but you've taken your knowledge and quite rightly you've packaged it into the recent ebook release, and you're building a community around that. What inspired you to go and take it to the next level with a premium product? Should any listeners who might be interested get from this? Who would this suit? And take us through it.
Okay, so I started 2 years ago. I started publishing on LinkedIn. I will tell you the full story because it's interesting. I was reading at Americans or Indians on LinkedIn because I wanted to do data at first. I started in SEO by myself. I told you, self-taught. But I wanted to switch to data. Then I thought, okay, let's combine the two. But before, I was reading at Americans and Indians writing on LinkedIn. And I was like, what? You can build a personal brand on this stuff? And they did the same. Then for some reason, I don't recall what happened, they told, no man, Twitter is better because there is this community, and they started posting on Twitter. But the thing that pushed me is that I didn't like the mainstream SEO community, and I still don't, because it's too, no really, because it's too focused. I don't know how to explain it. It's too polarized on some ideas, and I appreciate what you guys do, as well as other people, because it's the same thing but under a different light. What I mean is that I don't need another article on e-commerce filters or on-page SEO in 2023, because it's always the same. They don't explore other things that are practical for business owners. And my favorite examples is from the content overlords, the mafia of the internet. So Red Ventures, Dotdash Meredith, and these companies that I admire, because you have to be God, you have to be perfect to dominate the English market in the web. You have to be really, really good. And I also covered this topic on one of my newsletters, how Red Ventures, Dotdash, and another one, Vox Media, if I recall, use data, and they're very smart. I'm like, why these companies, they don't keep it secret, but they don't talk about it every single day. And in SEO, we barely talk about these topics, because at the end of the day, especially in the English market, only a few players get the largest share. And probably, as you know, they have multiple domains competing for the same keywords. No, you know, that's what many do. Many rich people, those who have the money to afford it. And for these websites, you don't care about on-page SEO compared to management. Because if you were the head of these websites, would you care about the H2s? No, you would care about scaling, maintaining it, and probably fishing new opportunities, keeping your market share. And so that's what pushed me, because I noticed that the focus on data was very low. Marketing in general was very low, a lot of misinformation. For example, long-tail keywords. Long-tail keywords, many say or study that a long-tail keyword is when you have a lot of words and the stuff, or where the search intent is high. But this is not actually true. For example, how to turn off iPhone 11 Pro. Is that short? Is that long? It's long, no? We agree it's a long keyword, no? But this is not long tail for their definition. You know why? Because the search volume is high. But it doesn't make any sense, because long tail, it's taken from business and statistics. And actually, it refers to another thing, which is the frequency, the probability that that keyword is appearing on Google, right? So a lot of terms we use are misused, and that's what pushed me, because I was like, fuck, there is a lot of misinformation. I think I can do better. And a lot of the SEO market is mostly UK and US. I mean, the biggest players, let's be honest, is mostly English-speaking countries. In terms of ad spend, US and UK, the best SEOs, the most important communities are either US or UK, in terms of numbers, in terms of average. And these communities don't focus much on some aspects, probably because of culture, because when you are taught SEO or business, maybe you have a different approach. I know it sounds stupid, but for example, if you go to Germany or other countries, if we follow stereotypes, that they are true, they are more of an engineering country than a marketing country. If you had to pick between the UK and Germany for marketing, who would you pick? Of course, the UK. But for engineering, I would probably pick, I would pick Germany, for example, because by tradition and by the focus over the economy, it's the same with SEO, I think. Many people with a background in content don't care much about some details. And the same, many people with a background in technical SEO are not able to write content. And the thing that the biggest problem in SEO is that we believe everything we read in terms of data. Because even with a basic background, even in economics, I'm not asking a PhD, you know that some things are a little bit off. For example, a lot of analysis, now you have the, how is it called? The interpreter, the new name, advanced data analytics, whatever, the ChatGPT. But For example, I saw a lot of analysis and they don't make any sense, because as a business, why should I care that clicks are positively correlated with views? Isn't that usually obvious? Like, how can I use this information to make more money? There is no value. But if I tell you another thing, for example, look, usually, often, this content, this cluster is always decaying. Please, can we do something about it? This is a valuable insight because you have found a pain point, a weak spot. This is what they actually mean when I tell using data. It's not about the tool. I mean, of course, I also code a lot, but it's mostly about what you can do. Because at the start, I had this problem, which is the problem of many people, but also in SEO, that you find something, but it's not useful or actionable. So now I go the other extreme. I find something. If I can't tie it to some action, I just don't say it, because they don't care. I just find what can help you. For example, this article doesn't have internal links. What's the action? Put internal links. But if I tell you this article has a bounce rate of 80%, maybe it's normal because you just have to read and bounce. Is that bad? No, it's the goal of the article. This is not something that leads to something actionable. It's just a trivia, nice to know information.
So how did
There's
you then...
so much in there, man, that it's going to be so much value for people, mate.
So
I could literally sit here and ask you questions for like all night.
So how do you go from this philosophy of wanting to clear it up and make data more actionable to then eventually releasing your own product designed to help people with that? And who listening to this would most benefit from the ebook that you've released that has these examples within it?
Yes, so I would say my favorite target, also because they have more money, of course, is entrepreneurs or people with portfolios. So usually my work is not ideal if you are a travel blogger or if you have one website. It's ideal if you have more websites or if you have problems. You don't need to be Red Ventures. I'm not saying you need to be a pluri-billionaire. I'm saying if you are in the scale of million per year, if you have a lot of data, if you have a lot of content, and you don't know how to use them, my content is ideal for those people because they don't know how to use them, how they can leverage this data, and then they can say, okay, we can do this stuff. But as I said before, if you're small, I will never recommend to overcomplicate it because practice taught me that you just have to execute. Then, once you get bigger, execution is only one part. You need abstraction, how I call it. I don't know what would be the perfect English word, but in my opinion, abstraction is the best one to give you the idea, which means thinking high level, like strategy. Like, how can I diversify my business? For example, if you have a website about fridges, why? Like, how am I different from a competitor? Data can help you in that. They can also shape your direction. They can teach you what you can do, and they can kind of inform your decisions. For example, if you notice that your best cluster is fridge, and you think purely in terms of business, you can say, okay, maybe we should diversify and go into fridges. Of course, you don't just look at Google. You also look at profitability, affiliate, display ads, you see other metrics. But let's say it's fine. Let's say I consider them. Data would tell me, okay, then I can try to move my offer to niche down into fridges maybe. Why should I go all the way into ovens or whatever, any other home appliance? No? This is one example. Another example is those people like agencies, especially agencies, because a lot of agencies don't hire people with these skill sets because they are hard to find. I know it's very hard. Sometimes it can be expensive to hire in-house. And most analysis, I've seen a lot of them in all everywhere in the world. I'm not talking about one country. I'm talking about many countries. Some are data dumps or some are very low level. So white labeling, in my opinion, is very solid because we are not talking about strategy. I don't think, as many say, that you should outsource strategy. Never. I would never say that. But if you have a single deliverable or something super specific, my book or what I do can help them because it's specific, no? It's very, very specific to a specific side of the website, and it doesn't harm what they do in general. It's not even SEO, you can say, because it's not. So mostly agencies, people who own portfolios, or those, maybe another category in the middle, those in the middle, like gray, we can say, that have a kind of big website and want to scale it. Not super big, maybe not like the others that you have a lot of articles. Maybe you're in the middle and you want to scale it, or you want to learn how to automate some basic processes. Like medium business, those as well. Small businesses, I wouldn't say so because it's too small. I mean, actually, you can use BigQuery, you can use Analytics 4. They don't cost anything. They are very cheap, okay? But they can still get some value out of them. But I wouldn't want to work with them because the margin of action is much, much narrow, that I wouldn't know what to do in some cases. And I would just tell them, write more content. I know it's obvious, but it's true. But if you have 1,000 articles, we can talk about it, or 500. Wait, ads. If you are affiliate, for me, 300 articles, we are not small. Because 300 articles in affiliate is not the same as a pure content website.
Yeah.
It's much more. It's like times 5 for me.
We have a 600 page. My main site is 580 pages.
Yeah, but
I'd say I'd say about 250 of those are affiliate, and we're like basically treading water with how quickly they will decay in relevance, decay in freshness, decay in products that go out of like sold, that new versions come out, and it's a lot. Like, people don't really, I think people blindly think that content is always an asset, but it can turn into a liability really quickly, and how much
I completely agree. Yeah. This is why I was mentioning Decay, but it's the same with properties. A lot of people say that an house is rich. Okay, have one in Italy, pay taxes, okay, repair it, and see, it's a liability. So assets, you're right, assets can turn into liabilities. The same is with websites. Maybe not full liabilities, but maybe your profit is so low, your profit margin is so low that you just want to flip it. You say, enough is enough.
Yeah, that was really good, man. Thank you so much for your time on this. And I appreciate you going over a bit as well. And that was really, really cool. I had so much more. We'll have to do this again in a few months' time or something. Sure. And if anyone wants to find you on Twitter, on your newsletter, and buy your products, where should they go to?
Well, my website is like the container for this stuff. So you can go on SEOTSITICS.com, or just look for me on Twitter or LinkedIn. You will find me with my full name. If you didn't understand the website, it's still fine. Either is fine.
Nice. We will put the links in the description to make sure that
as well as the newsletter, maybe.
And the newsletter. Yeah, what I will say is that I read your one where you were talking about the Red Ventures, and you linked to a Medium post where they basically gave it all away, and I was like, this is crazy. I recommend everyone listening goes and subscribes to Marco's newsletter as well, because he really does put a lot of time into it. There are some newsletters, I'm not going to mention any names, that are just like regurgitate a few tweets that happened in the week, and it's like kind of service level. Marco's is not one of those. Marco's is really, really genuine. Like, you can tell that this is several hours, like a committed project on top of all of the other work he does to deliver content every week that is really helpful, and I highly recommend it. Thank you for coming on. We appreciate your time, and have a nice rest of the evening after this. And thank you very much, man.
So did you stop recording, or?
We're about to.
Okay.
Perfect ending.
We'll keep that in there.
Perfect. It was very nice. Thank you, guys.